people who are kids today, they won't get to be suffering from the diseases and disabilities of old age until, well into the second half of this century. So that's an awfully long time. An awful lot of progress tends to happen in technologies in general, including medical technologies, in that kind of amount of time.
Mm.
Now, of course, a lot of things take a long time to be invented. Leonardo da Vinci probably thought he was fairly close to inventing powered flight, but actually it took another few hundred years. So, there's always the possibility that we will come across a lot of really big, new, show-stopping obstacles that we're not yet aware of. But eventually, the whole thing comes together. Eventually, one does figure out how to do what one's trying to do. We just have to do our best. Ultimately, the goal of any pioneering technologist, of any pioneering technological venture, is to have a go, because the purpose is to improve people's quality of life, and in this case, people's quantity of life as well.
And I know you've said that actually, the first person to live to 150 might be not that far off, but then technology will and research will increase so quickly that their life will move slower than the technology, if that makes sense. So that's why they might get to 1,000. Have I explained that? Yeah,
pretty much. That's the concept that I've called longevity escape velocity, where essentially
longevity escape velocity.
That's right.
Okay.
Where if you are lucky enough to benefit from let's call them the first generation therapies that do this rejuvenation, so that you're, let's say, 60 at that time and you get rejuvenated, then that will not take you to living to 1,000 or probably not even to 200.
Yeah.
But it will probably give you maybe 30 years of additional life. And the reason it will only give you 30 is because the therapies won't be perfect. There will be some types of damage that they don't work properly on. So that means that research has to continue in order to keep banging away at that residue, the more recalcitrant, difficult damage. The thing is, though, 30 years is an awfully long time, as I was mentioning a minute ago, and therefore, in those 30 years, it's virtually certain that we will knock off a sufficient proportion of the remaining damage that the person who came in at 60 and then will come in again being biologically 60 a second time at the age of 90 can be re-rejuvenated so that they won't be biologically 60 a third time until they're 150, and so on.
It is absolutely astonishing, isn't it? In some ways, the prospect for people of being able to dance on the dance floor with their granddaughter in the nightclub is a very appealing one. And then some people will probably think, hang on, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday is already enough of a slog as it is. But if I have to do that for 150 years and I still can't retire, I don't really want that. I guess it throws up all these ethical dilemmas about whether you want it or not.
Yeah, I wouldn't call them ethical. I would say the ethical situation is absolutely unambiguous. Nobody's in favor of being sick. Nobody's in favor of other people being sick. And that's what this is all about. So really the dilemma...
Unless you think that there are some benefits to aging.
There are clearly some benefits to aging. You become more knowledgeable and all that. The point is you also get sick. And there's no benefit to getting sick.
Mm.
So, yes, there are not so much ethical dilemmas as sociological ones. And very much as with the one you mentioned earlier, the prospect of overpopulation, the situation with retirement, with how long one would have to work, is one that needs to be looked at in the context of other breakthroughs, other technological advances that are occurring in the same time. So in this case, the critical one that matters the most is simply automation. We currently have managed to cling as a society to the concept of more or less full employment, despite the avalanche of automation that began with the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
And the way we've done it is by creating new jobs, essentially creating the whole service sector, which didn't exist before because there were not enough people to go around to do these jobs because they had to do all the manufacturing and agriculture and so on. Now, the thing is, the service sector is now beginning to be automated out of existence as well. And I think it's quite likely that within as little as 20 or 30 years, in other words, before these technologies that Science Research Foundation works on have come to fruition, that we will actually see a decimation of the service sector that is so massive that we just have to abandon the whole concept of full employment, and we just have to organize the distribution of wealth in a completely different way.